Welcome to our channel of IGNOU Audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Tourism and Hospitality Service Management, SOTHSM, BE Vocational Studies Tourism Management, BE VTM, CBCS. BTMC 133 History of Tourism 2. Unit 1 Renaissance and Reformation, 1.0 Objectives. This unit deals with a very momentous period of European history which initiated major changes not only in economy, society and polity but in overall outlook towards human beings and nature. After reading this unit you should be able to learn about the economic and social factors which contributed to the processes of Renaissance and Reformation. The ideas, values and institutions associated with Renaissance and Reformation. The art and culture of this period. The process which led to the rise of modern state in Europe and the expansion of European powers to other regions of the world led to colonization. 1.1 Introduction. In this unit, we introduce the study of a very crucial period in human history in which the foundations of the modern world were laid. A number of interrelated developments took place in the period from about the 14th to the 17th century AD. There were certain major developments in Europe which had their impact on the entire world. In certain aspects, the impact was felt more or less immediately, while in others it took a much longer time. The terms Renaissance and Reformation are generally used to describe this period of transformation. The word Renaissance means rebirth, and it was used to refer to the revival or interest in the learning of ancient Greece and Rome. But it was much more than the revival of ancient learning. It embraced ideas and achievements in philosophy, religion, art, literature, politics and science which had little in common with the ancient heritage. At times, they were also against the Catholic Church and the authority of the Pope, which led to the rise of Protestantism in the early 16th century as well as to the Catholic Reformation known as Counter-Reformation in the later 16th century. The Reformation had a profound impact on the history of Europe which extended beyond the sphere of religion. Both Renaissance and Reformation had common social and economic causes. In their impact, they coincided, and together, they brought about the collapse of the feudal order and laid the foundations of a new social order. A series of interrelated developments accompanied these changes in society and economy. There were fundamental changes in the thinking of human beings about the world and their place in it, and in the content and style of art and literature. There was a decisive shift away from divine matters to the study of human matters and an invincible faith in the tremendous creative potential of human beings. The foundations of modern science were laid in this period. The period also saw the emergence of nation-states with new forms of political system and new political theories. This period was also the age of discovery when the voyages of exploration brought for the first time in history all parts of the world into contact with one another. All these developments must be seen in their mutual interrelationship. It may be useful to first have a look at the general and economic background of the period in which these changes and development took place. 1.2 Social and economic background. In medieval period the revival of trade was accompanied by the growth of towns. Old towns became larger and many new towns emerged, mainly as centers of manufacture and trade. Towns, often walled, gradually freed themselves from feudal control. They had their own governments and the townsmen elected their officials. They had their own militia and their own courts. Unlike the serfs in feudal estates, there were no restrictions on the movements of citizens in the towns. They could come and go as they pleased and buy and sell property. Town air makes a man free, is an old medieval proverb. Towns provided asylum to serfs who escaped from feudal oppression. The towns encouraged the cultivation of cash crops needed for manufacturers, and peasants received their payments in money. The peasant could now pay his dues to the lord in cash rather than by labor. Money had little use in feudal societies. A feudal manor was more or less self-sufficient for its needs. There was very little of buying and selling, and whatever there was done through barter. With the growth of trade, there was increasing use of money. The use of money indicated far-reaching changes in economy. 1.2.1 The capitalist economy. The privileged people did have money, in the form of gold and silver, but it was idle money. It could not be used to make more money. With the growth of trade and manufacture, this changed, marking the beginning of the transition from a feudal economy to a capitalist economy in which wealth, generally in the form of money, could be used to make a profit. This was done by investing money in business, trade and industry. The profits made were reinvested to make further profits. Such wealth or money is called capital. Money increasingly became the measure of a man's wealth. In feudal societies, other than the feudal lords, there were three classes of people: the prayers, the clergy who prayed, the soldiers, the knights who fought, and workers, the peasants who worked for both the clergy and the soldiers. With the growth of trade, a new class emerged, the middle class, comprising mainly the merchants. Even though small in number, they began to play an important role in society because of the wealth they possessed. Initially, international trade was largely in luxury goods from the east and was controlled by merchants in the Italian cities of Venice, Genoa and Pise, and towns in southern Germany. With the great geographical discoveries of the last decade of the 15th century, the discovery of a sea route to the east and the discovery of the Americas, the pattern of trade changed. It was dominated by Portugal and Spain and later by Holland and Britain. Simultaneously, with these developments, changes took place in the system of manufacture goods. In the early medieval period, most of the non-agricultural products required by the peasant were produced in the household of the peasant and for the serfs who were skilled in particular crafts and had organized themselves guilds. There were, for example, guilds of bakers, of weavers and of dyers. Each craft guild had a master of craftsmen, apprentices and journeymen. To learn a craft, a person joined a master as an apprentice or learner. After having learned a craft, he worked as a journeyman with the master on a wage, or, if he had mastered the craft, would himself become a master craftsman. The units of production were small, consisting of 3 or 4 people, and each unit had a shop to sell its produce. There were no inequalities within a unit or between units of the same guild. The guild prevented any competitors from practicing the craft, but it ensured the quality of the produce as well as fair business practices and stable prices. The guild system was not suited to the requirements of large-scale production necessitated by an expanding demand for goods, and the system began to decline, giving place to a capitalist system. Inequities appeared within the system, with masters refusing to let journeymen become masters and paying them low wages. With the introduction of the putting out system, their independence declined. The merchant, under this system, would bring the master craftsman the raw materials. The craftsmen would work with their tools as before in their homes. And the produce would be taken away by the merchant who had supplied them with the raw materials. Thus, in effect, unlike before, the craftsmen did not own what they produced. They were increasingly reduced to the position of wage earners, except that they still owned the tools used by them and worked at home. Subsequently, this system gave way to the factory system, under which production was carried out in buildings owned by the capitalist with the help of machines owned by the capitalist. The workers, owning nothing, worked only for wages. In industries which required large investments such as mining and metalworking, the capitalist system, in which some people owned the raw materials, the tools and machines and the products, and the workers worked only for a wage, came into being early. This period saw a tremendous expansion of manufacturers. It was accompanied by a growing social differentiation in towns and the emergence of the working class. Just as there were peasant revolts in different parts of Europe towards the decline of feudalism, there were also uprisings by the city poor in this age of rising capitalism. 1.3 Renaissance. The term Renaissance literally means rebirth and is, in a narrow sense, used to describe the revival of interest in the classical civilizations of Greece and Rome. This deeply influenced Europeans. The Renaissance, however, was not a mere revival of ancient learning. It was marked by a series of new developments in the fields of art, literature, religion, philosophy, science and politics. The intellectual and cultural life of Europe for centuries had been dominated by the Catholic Church. The Renaissance undermined this domination. The revival of pre-Christian classical learning and of interest in the cultural achievements of ancient Greece and Rome was, in itself, an important factor in undermining the domination of the Church. The Renaissance, of course, went beyond mere revival and gave rise to a new way of thinking. 1.3.1 Humanism. The chief characteristic of the Renaissance way of thinking was humanism. Basically, it meant a decisive shift in concern for human as distinct from divine matters. Humanism controlled man, stressed his essential worth and dignity, expressed invincible faith in his tremendous creative potential, and proclaimed freedom of the individual and his inalienable rights. It was centered on a notion of man that did not reject earthly joys, recognized the beauty and dignity of the human body, opposed religious asceticism, and defended man's right to pleasure and satisfaction of earthly desires and requirements. It meant the glorification of the human and the natural disposition and rejected the otherworldliness of Catholic belief that human existence has its origin in sin. Therefore, it is tainted. The humanists rejected or even ridiculed religious mortification of the flesh and withdrawal from the world. They urged man to seek joy on this earth rather than an afterlife which the Church advocated. Their works were permeated with the faith that a man with an active mind and body was capable of knowing and controlling the world, and fashioning his own happiness. These ideas increasingly narrowed the domain of the divine and extended the domain of man. Pico della Mirandola, an Italian humanist of the 15th century who had traveled widely and had studied various systems of philosophy, published a list of 900 theses. The Renaissance belief in the limitless potentialities of man may be seen in the following excerpts from his writings. There is nothing more wonderful than man. This is what I have read in some record of the Arabians. A famous Greek said, "A great miracle a man is." What is the reason behind these sayings? Human beings are kings of all beings below God and the angels because of the ability of their reason and the light of their reason and the light of their intelligence. But these reasons are not enough. Man is the most fortunate of creatures. Why? Because of all creatures, God did not limit the potential of man. Only humans have freedom of choice and can fashion themselves in whatever shape they prefer. They have the power to degenerate into a brutish form of life, like the animals. Secondly, physical strength or instinct helps them to survive. Or, they have the power to use their intelligence to turn them into a higher form of life that is godlike. The ancient Babylonians said, man is a being that has a varied nature. Why do we stress this? Because we say that we human beings can become what we will. Know thyself. By this rule we are encouraged to investigate all of nature. The person who knows himself or herself knows all things. 1.3.2 Secularism. If we compare the contemporary view of the world with the medieval view, we will recognize the great transformation of thought that had taken place from religious, otherworldliness to humanistic, thisworldliness. The humanist is more interested in the material world around, in the contents of the physical universe than in gods, angels or demons, whereas the medieval men of religion were more interested in God, angels or demons. The humanist is concerned to make the most of his brief life, whereas the medieval men regarded life as a painful preparation for a happier life which, they thought, would come after death. This transformation which the Renaissance inaugurated may be termed as marking the passage from religion to secularism. The new intellectual and cultural climate which the Renaissance created influenced even the church hierarchy, particularly its upper levels, who were wealthy. For example, Leo X, who was the Pope from 1513 to 1521, said on becoming the Pope, "Let us enjoy this papacy which God has given us." 1.4 Renaissance literature. The humanist ideas of the Renaissance found artistic expression in literature, painting, architecture, and sculpture. Some of the greatest writers, poets, and dramatists of the Renaissance were Petrarch and Boccaccio in Italy, Rabelais in France, Erasmus in Holland, von Hutten in Germany, Cervantes in Spain and Shakespeare in England. The themes of their writings had little to do with religion or piety or asceticism and were often reformed and anti-clerical. The most significant feature of the literary output of the Renaissance, and since, has been the use of vernacular languages, or the languages spoken by the people of a region or country. Until about the 14th century, there were hardly any writings in any of the languages spoken by the people of different countries of Europe: Italian, Spanish, French, German, English, etc. The language of scholarship and literature for centuries had been Latin, which only the educated, who constituted a very small part of the population, could understand. The Renaissance marks the emergence of modern European languages as languages of literature and the beginning of the development of these languages. In a short period, these languages almost completely replaced Latin as the language of poetry, drama and fiction. Latin continued, however, to be the language of philosophy and science for some more time. The Renaissance literature in modern European languages was marked by significant changes in style and theme. Initially, the tendency was towards copying the Latin literary style. Its first impact was felt in poetry, where the imitation of court poets was given up and new rhymes were adopted with themes which were increasingly secular. There were significant developments in drama, and increasing use of satire. A major development was in the field of prose writings. Earlier prose was a medium only for scholarly writing. Stories were told through poems. Now, the prose story emerged as an extremely important literary form. Boccaccio's Decameron, basically a collection of stories in Italian, was a pioneering work and influenced the Renaissance prose writings all over Europe. 1.5 Art and Architecture. Some of the greatest achievements of the Renaissance were made in the realm of painting, sculpture and architecture. The humanism of Renaissance found brilliant expression in these art forms. The Renaissance artists made use of biblical subjects, but the interpretation that they gave of these subjects had little to do with the traditional religious attitude, and as an independent activity assumed a status which was unknown in the medieval times. The purpose of medieval art was to express moral values and impart religious teachings. The people portrayed were not men and women of flesh and blood. The artists, mostly anonymous, had a low position in society. They worked in groups as craftsmen and had no individuality. The Renaissance marked the rise of artists, each with his unique individuality and style, who enjoyed great prestige in society. The wealthy merchant, the princes and the church competed for their patronage. Art was freed from religious or ritualistic overtones. Now artistic creations were admitted for their intrinsic aesthetic value, and were seen as evidence of achievements of the individual artists. Of all the art forms, Renaissance's supreme achievement was in painting. The Renaissance artists looked upon art as an imitation of life. This required close observation of nature and of man, of mountains, trees, and animals, and of the anatomy of man. The artists studied optics and geometry and used their knowledge to develop perspectives, including aerial perspectives, in their paintings. They studied human anatomy to find the mechanism underlying gestures and expressions. Leonardo da Vinci, for example, studied not only the anatomical structure of the human body, but also, in order to represent movement, the way different parts of the body shaped when in a state of movement. Leonardo considered painting a science. The sculpture of the Renaissance period developed along the same lines as the painting. The medieval sculpture used images of saints and depicted religious themes as part of architecture. One of the significant developments now was the emergence of the freestanding sculpture. Architecture emerged as an art itself, until ceased to be a religious medium. As in the case of painting, the growing knowledge of anatomy and the new standards of beauty also influenced the developments of sculpture. The Renaissance period thus also marks the beginning of the decline of Gothic architecture, which had dominated the architecture of cathedrals and churches from the 12th and 13th centuries. The basic features of this architecture were ribbed walls, sharply pointed arches and huntresses. The Gothic structures had lofty spires. They had stained glass windows and carved facades and were decorated with representations of mythical creatures. The Renaissance architects considered Gothic architecture as ascetic and otherworldly and used the word Gothic to disparage it as barbarian. New styles of architecture began to be developed, first in Italy and later in other parts of Europe. These were based on the study of the ancient Roman architecture. The finest specimen of the new style was St. Peter's Church in Rome. The buildings in the new style, many of which were churches, have been described as expressing ideals which were purely secular, joy in this life and pride in human achievement. 1.6 Beginning of the Scientific Revolution. The Renaissance marked the beginning of modern science. One of the first achievements was in astronomy. This was an exposition by Copernicus of the rotation of the Earth on its axis and its motion around the Sun. This marked an important break with the ancient system of thought. For over 1,000 years, it was believed that the Earth was the center of the universe. It was a cardinal dogma of scholastic philosophers, and its refutation meant an attack on the theological conception of the universe. It was therefore to be condemned as a heresy and punished. Copernicus's book, On the Revolution of the Celestial Orbs, was published in 1543, the year in which he died. He had hesitated from publishing it for fear of the hostility of the Church. While the theory awaited final confirmation by Galileo later, the very idea of an open universe of which the Earth was but a small part was shattering to the theological view of a closed universe, created and maintained in motion by God. About half a century after the publication of Copernicus's book, in 1606, Giordano Bruno was burnt for heresy which the vision of an infinite universe had inspired. The decisive proof of the new conception of the universe was made possible by the invention of the telescope, which has been called the greatest scientific instrument of the age. Galileo, born 11 years after the death of Copernicus, used this instrument in his study of the heavenly bodies, and the Copernicus theory was confirmed by Galileo's observations. Galileo was tried in his old age and was condemned and forced to recant his views. He was awarded nominal imprisonment and allowed to carry on his scientific work, which was not directly connected with astronomy. Galileo's trial marked the end of a period in the history of science. Significant discoveries were made in the study of the human body and circulation of blood, which helped to combat many superstitions. We have already referred work of the Renaissance artists relating to the study of anatomy. In 1543, the year in which Copernicus's book was published, Versailles, a Belgian, published his profusely illustrated De Hunan Corporis Fabrica. Based on the study of the dissections of the human body, this book provided the first complete description of the anatomy of the human body. Servetus, a Spaniard, published a book explaining the circulation of blood. He was condemned to death for questioning the Church belief in Trinity. A complete account of the constant process of circulation of blood, from the heart to all parts of the body and hack again, was given by Harvey, an Englishman, in about 1610 in his dissertation upon the movement of the heart. The period produced many other giants in science, and great discoveries and inventions were made. 1.7 Reformation. The term Reformation implies two major developments in the history of Europe towards the latter part of Renaissance. First, the Protestant Revolution, which resulted in a split in Christendom, and secondly, the secession of a large number of countries from the Roman Catholic Church by establishing separate churches in those countries, generally along national lines. This triggered reforms within the Roman Catholic Church, generally referred to as the Catholic Reformation or Counter-Reformation. But Reformation was not merely a religious movement. It was intimately connected with, and was in fact, a part of the social and political movements of the period which brought about the end of the medieval period and the emergence of the modern world. As in the case of Renaissance, Reformation must be seen in the context of the social, economic and political changes in Europe. 1.8 Let us sum up. Renaissance and Reformation set into motion a process that revolution is the outlook of human beings on religion, society, political systems and culture. This process was the product of several socio-economic changes, such as the emergence of civic freedom in towns and cities, formation of occupational guilds, development of seaborne trade, geographical discoveries, etc. The Renaissance marked the rise of humanism, which shifted the focus from divine principles to human beings. The human body was no more treated as a symbol of sin. It was now considered a thing of beauty, dignity and pleasure. This outlook generated new writings and literature, art and architecture, where the emphasis was on beauty and aesthetic standards in relation to human conditions. With the promotion of secular ideas and rational thinking, the doors for the development of modern science were thrown open. The conflict between church and science ultimately resulted in favor of science. The sanction of the church was no more required for the promotion and recognition of scientific discoveries. The forces of Reformation challenged the abuse of authority by the church. This not only resulted in the emergence of national churches, but also compelled the church hierarchy to introduce reforms, i.e. the Counter-Reformation. Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next video with the next chapter.